to all of our donors. I just can't thank you enough for continuing to support this work as we, again, continue to forge a path forward in the Deep South. I'd also like to give a special thanks to our president and CEO, Margaret Wong, because without her, this wouldn't be possible. So the march continues and the work continues. And now at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our president and CEO, Margaret Wong.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Thank you very much. I'm dropping things as I go. It is so wonderful to be with all of you, even crowded in this space. Thank you for squeezing in to enable all of us to be in the room together as we continue this very special tradition of honoring the martyrs of the movement. I want to start by thanking Congresswoman Nikema Williams, an extraordinary champion of voting rights and racial justice, not only for her home district, of course, John Lewis's district in Georgia, but for the entire South. Thank you so much for being here. And I also want to acknowledge my colleagues from the Department of Justice. You will be hearing from them as well. But I appreciate your coming to represent the Office of the Assistant Attorney General and being part of today's commemoration. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge the nephew of John Lewis, Jarek Lewis, who is also the director of the John Lewis Legacy Institute. We're so grateful to have you here, sir. John Lewis often said, "Freedom is not a state, it is an act." And the lives of the martyrs that we are remembering today are a testament to those words and to the pursuit and the costs of freedom. Jimmie Lee Jackson, as Taffany noted, is one of those martyrs. Born in Marion, Alabama, Mr. Jackson was a proud civil rights activist, a deacon, and a father. For years, Mr. Jackson, his mother, and his grandfather tried to register to vote here in Alabama, and they were always turned away from the polls because of the crushing system of racial apartheid here in Alabama. After hearing Dr. King speak, he too got motivated to get involved in efforts to organize for change. 59 years ago, on the night of February 18th, 1965, Mr. Jackson joined a peaceful march in Selma in support of James Orange, who was the field secretary of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and he was being held in a nearby jail. It wasn't long before the Alabama State Troopers started unleashing violence against the demonstrators. Mr. Jackson was clubbed down and shot twice. He died 8 days later in the hospital. But his death was not in vain. His murder catalyzed a movement for racial justice that led to the famous Selma to Montgomery March, which then gave us the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Shortly after the act was signed, Jimmie Lee Jackson's grandfather was able to register and vote for the first time in his life at 84 years. Because of Mr. Jackson and all of those martyrs on the stone outside this memorial, because they raised their voices, because they took to the streets, because they organized Black voters, and because they worked to demand their rights. Their lives were taken far too early, but none of them died in vain. As Dr. King said at Mr. Jackson's memorial service, Jimmie Lee's death says to us that we must work passionately and unrelentingly to make the American dream a reality. That call is as urgent today as it was in 1965. As we gather to honor the lives of the martyrs, I urge each of you to think about your role, your opportunity to remember their sacrifices and to live up to their call for action. Today, the march continues. The fight for justice stays alight. Each of us work passionately and unrelentingly to build the best version of America, one where all people enjoy freedom, where all people enjoy opportunity. I'm glad you're here to join us. Thank you all for being part of today. And it is now my great honor to bring up Congresswoman Nikema Williams for her remarks. Thank you, Congresswoman.
Hello, everybody. Hello. So I was listening to the comments around the weather, and I know we have Mr. Lewis's family with us here today, and y'all, bad weather is my kryptonite, and I was like, I'm not getting out in this. And then I think it was Mr. Lewis talking when the thunder started, because he would not have had any parts of it in the thunder. So it was a blessing in disguise, and he made sure that we were still able to gather. And there are a lot of events going on this weekend, and there are a lot of things that tried to keep me from being here today. We had votes in D.C. yesterday. I had to take, I'm not a morning, well, I'm about to say I don't like bad weather. I don't do mornings too tough. And this morning I had to take a flight before 8 a.m. to get to Atlanta to drive over, but I was determined to be here because of the sacrifices that were made by so many people to make it even possible for me to serve in the United States Congress. And so the least that I can do is that every Friday of Jubilee weekend, I know that I will be here honoring the martyrs of the civil rights movement with Severn Poverty Law Center. Y'all, I am Congresswoman Nikema Williams, and I proudly represent Georgia's Fighting 5th Congressional District. And I know I have some constituents here today. And I am just so thankful to our hosts for doing this every year. We appreciate the tireless work of Severn Poverty Law Center to press forward on human rights while keeping alive the memory of those whose lives were taken in the struggle for freedom. We must remember that the atrocities of the civil rights movement, y'all, they're not a relic of the distant past. As we enter the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, we carry many of the same struggles today for equity and justice. While we commemorate the bravery of the civil rights martyrs, this is also a time to recommit to carrying forth the work for racial equity and social justice. The 40 martyrs represented on this memorial and the countless other victims of violent injustice during the civil rights movement, y'all, they deserve our unyielding commitment to always march on. Saying their names and reflecting on their courage alone is not enough. We have to act on their memory, on their behalf. Today, we also remember my friend and my predecessor, the late Congressman John Lewis. Before he was a member of the United States Congress, he was a young leader who sought change, and he knew that something was better. Something better was possible, a beloved community. Mr. Lewis also knew that our access to the vote gave us a necessary voice, and it was for that reason that he nearly gave his life for free and fair access to the ballot on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Mr. Lewis shed blood, sweat, and tears, along with so many of the other people that are memorialized here at this monument. But make no mistake, Mr. Lewis was one of the strongest champions for voting rights before ever walking the halls of Congress. I'm grateful to have spent many years learning from him, and if there is one lesson to take from his life, from his early years, it is that it is not a right time to wait or to do the right thing. You just have to get into that good trouble, the necessary trouble that he always taught us. There are no age requirements in the work to move our country forward. Mr. Lewis said it best many times, that we're never too young, never too old to speak up, to speak out, to find a way, to get in the way. Y'all, this is our civil rights movement. If you ever wondered what you would have done during the civil rights movement, this is your opportunity to find out. There are a lot of forces still trying to take us back to where we were 59 years ago, 60 years ago. But the work that you're doing here at the Severn Poverty Law Center, it moves us forward. So if you ever wondered, y'all, it is your turn to get in that good trouble And y'all, that's how the march will continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you both so much for those wonderful and inspirational words. I have the pleasure of introducing the executive director of the John Lewis Legacy Institute. Last weekend, I had the pleasure to attend the gala in Atlanta, and it was a beacon of light, a beacon of hope. And I am just so grateful that the nephew of John Lewis is continuing to carry his torch in his care for the beloved community. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend, Mr. Jarek Lewis.
Thank you for thinking enough of a little boy from Troy, Alabama. You often hear me say people's time and effort is something that I do not take for granted. So thank you all for having me. It's such an honor to be amongst so many great people. To Congresswoman Nekima, you're amazing. Thank you for the work that you are continuing to do in the 5th Congressional District of Atlanta, Georgia. As stated, I'm Jarek Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of the John R. Lewis Legacy Institute. On behalf of the Lewis family, we just want to say thank you. It's so ironic that I was asked to reflect on the life of my uncle. Over the past few weeks, I have found myself over many occasions reflecting on the life of my uncle and, and what he meant to me personally, what he meant to my family, just what he meant to the world. We often take for granted the things that he did to sacrifice for us to simply be in this room together. Together, that word always stands out. When we can be together, when we can be as one, that is such a strong word. As I entered the room earlier next door, I saw a picture of my grandmother on the wall. A picture of my grandmother on the wall. That was my hero. That was John Lewis's hero. I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for my family sitting in front of me. That was their hero as well. She was an amazing woman, such an amazing woman. She would cook daily meals for the entire family. I'm talking about daily meals, Monday through Sunday, 3 meals a day. She was a hard worker, probably the smartest woman I've ever met in my entire life. She sacrificed for her entire family. And to think about, she was doing that not just for herself, but for others. To think about my grandfather, who purchased over 100 acres of land back in the 1940s, for my family to still reap the benefits of that today. What an amazing man. What an unselfish man. And with that being said, now you see where the groundwork, where the structure came from.
That's right.
It came from William May Lewis and Eddie Lewis. It came from his 9 other siblings. It wasn't just him. Back then, we didn't have any social media. We didn't have no Facebook, no text messages. They had God. They had faith. And that's what they lived on. That's what they continue to live on to this day. I often think about a story of one of my uncles who passed away in 2010. My uncle was deaf and mute, but he talked a lot. He talked a lot. And I remember him telling me stories on the porch, as my cousins can attest to this. He would tell us about my uncle getting into good trouble. He would hold up his hands like this, representing bars, to let us know that my uncle was in jail. He used to tell us that my uncle used to sit down somewhere. He said he needed to sit down. He would hit his leg and say he needed to sit down somewhere. But that was just him being worried, because they had no way of communication back then. As a brother, he was just simply worried about the well-being of his brother. My uncle passed away in 2010. from a stroke. But he was a great man. The Lewis family has been through so much lately. We lost my aunt over a couple of years ago. We lost a first cousin of ours last year. But we're still here because that's what my uncle would want us to do. He would want us to continue to fight. He would want us to continue to be together. He would not want us to drown in his sorrow, of him passing. He would want us to, flourish in the love that he presented to everyone in this room, because at the end of the day, no matter the problem, love is always the answer. It is always the answer. And let us not never forget that. No matter what you're going through, love conquers everything. John Lewis, thank you. Thank you, Uncle Robert. Thank you for being the light in my life. Thank you for being the light in my family's life. I've never thought as a teenager or a young adult that I would be in this position. Never thought. But because of his works, because of his efforts, I'm able to spread the love and give back what my family gave to me. I just want to say thank you. John Lewis would be so humble. He would be so humble. He would really think like, y'all doing this for me? That's the kind of man he was. I come from a hard-working family, a very, very hard-working family. A big family. Like I say, there was 10 siblings in all. There were 7 boys and 3 girls. There are 5 left. 2 of which I have here with me today. My dad and my uncle. Great men. When you think of John Lewis, think about Henry Lewis, think about Samuel Lewis. These men helped shape my life. These men helped take me to heights that I never even saw myself. So sometimes believing in others is all you need. Love thy neighbor. Love everyone around you guys. I can't say that enough, because that's what John Lewis did. He loved everybody. When you think about Bloody Sunday, I always think about the efforts and the sacrifices that he made simply for us to be together, simply for us to have the right to vote. He would call home on this day at times just to tell us that he was coming through Montgomery, headed to Selma. I remember that as a kid, and here we are. So never take things for granted. And like I stated earlier, always remember to love one another. That's what John Lewis did. Congresswoman Williams, thank you. Thank you for all you do. And the last week has been such an eventful week, but it's all been for good reasons. Starting with the post office renaming. We've had a stamp named after him recently. I mean, that is amazing. Simply for the little boy from Troy. So, at the end of the day, guys, I just want to thank you. And just remember that I love you. And on behalf of the Lewis family, we sincerely want to thank you. And thank you for your time. And thank you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jarek, for continuing to share your family with us and the legacy of the late Congressman John Lewis. So it is still raining pretty hard outside, but we do have a special musical tribute. I think our psalmist is here. She definitely has a voice that she could carry this a cappella, and we are going to allow her to do that. Also, we do have roses. So on your way out, if you're so inclined, if you could take a rose and just lay it at the memorial, and we'll lay the wreath later, so that people who are traveling to Selma will still see it laying on that memorial and carry that with them over the weekend. Is our musical guest the psalmist? You all don't want me to sing again this year.
I was about to say, we did it.
We did, yeah. Yeah. You all should definitely check out the video because we were the best. Like,
I don't know about the best.
well, we were good.
Hey, how y'all doing? I'm just gonna be here to sing. A change gonna come. All right? Okay. So bear with me, y'all. I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I go to the movies, then I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me, don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Then I go to my brother. And he said, brother, help me, please. Oh, and then he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there's been times when I thought I wouldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.
Wonderful. I actually didn't know that he was replacing Ann, and I really feel because I knew him as a kid growing up. Just amazing, amazing. Thank you all so much for being with us. I know our donors are going out front to get on the buses for their next event. For those of you who are in the green room, please feel free to go back to the green room, and I will be back to say hello. Thank you all so much again for your patience today. Thank you.